Hi, and welcome to How to Catch a Swarm. I'm very excited to get to do this with you all. So, tonight we're going to talk about how to catch a swarm. And it's such an adventure to catch a swarm. I love catching swarms. I've done it for 21 years now. Well, probably not. I don't think I caught a swarm till maybe my third year of beekeeping, but I've done it for a while. I've learned a lot, so I wanted to share that with you and give you some helpful hints to get you on your way. Maybe you'll learn something new you didn't know before. This is what a swarm looks like. It can be up in a tree hanging on a branch like that, or it can be in a tree hanging like this in a big old lump, or it can be spread out along a branch. All these are swarms I've caught over time. It can be hanging in a shrub or in another shrub, or it can be really kind of low to the ground and easy. Like these three are kind of easy because they're fairly low to the ground. This one's a little more challenging. There are lots of varieties of swarms. There's no recipe in the beehive for how they're supposed to make a swarm. You can find some in really difficult locations. This is one on a mailbox. That could have been very hard swarm to get because you can't shake it. You can't shake the branch. You can't cut the branch. It's on a mailbox. This one is even harder because it's on a chain link fence, which means the swarm is on both sides of the fence. So you can't put a sheet down under it to help catch the bees. You can't put a collection box under one side of it because there's still more on the other side of the fence. It was really a hard one. This one was a very hard one too. It's up on an I-beam. I had to use a ladder. I was younger. I had to use a ladder. I climbed way up. I had to carry the swarm box down to the ground. I left it so that the bees could get into the box to go get some more equipment that I needed. And when I got back, the swarm had all gone back to the I-beam because I had not gotten the queen, and I thought I had. And here's another hard one. This is at emery on a picnic table. Hard in the same way that the chain link fence is hard. And you can see some of the bees are on top of the table through the openings in the table, and some are down below. There's also a permanent picnic bench right here, so there was no way to put a box easily under it. It's just really, there's so many challenges. So you have to be able to think on your feet when you go catch a swarm, but it's a good learning experience for all of us to try to think outside the box. So a good Girl Scout, Boy Scout knows that the most important rule is be prepared. So in order to get ready to go catch a swarm, you need to keep a kit in your car at all times during swarm season. I always have this in my car. When I'm driving around in the spring, this is in the back of my car. So what is in your kit in your car? Your veil with your jacket, if you want a jacket. Here's my veil right here. I've got some gloves just in case. A light colored sheet, which is a bed sheet, the queen size bed sheet, but any sheet will do. A spray bottle filled with sugar water, a container for carrying the swarm home, which is what this is, a bee brush, which is what that is. You'll use it almost every time you catch a swarm. Some kind of a scoop. This is actually a painter's bucket, but it has a lip on it, which makes it really easy to pour the bees that you brush into the scoop or shake into the scoop. You can also make a scoop by cutting the top off of a plastic milk jug and keep the handle, and then you have a pretty good scoop. A way to secure the bees in the container. This container has a snap on top. If it doesn't have a snap on top, you need something to put on top of the box, like a ventilated hive cover and some bungee cords to strap it on. Step ladder, if you're willing to climb ladders, or a footstool, something to get you up a little bit higher. A frame of old comb. All right, here are two frames of old comb, or just a piece of old comb. All that will help. Plant clippers. I don't think I've ever gone to a swarm that involved plants that I didn't end up having to cut something with the plant clipper. Water for you to drink, your camera or a cell phone, lemon pledge or some swarm lure, and the phone number of the person who called about the swarm. Sometimes you'll get to the location of the swarm and not see the swarm. And it may be that they've already left, but you do need to talk to the person to find out, if you can't find the swarm, where exactly is it? After all, you've driven, however far you've driven to get there. So this is what you keep in your car at all times. There may be some other things that you come up with that will help you with the swarm catching, but those are the things that I carry in my car. Before we talk about how do you catch a swarm, I want to emphasize safety first. You are more important than any hive of bees. So keep that in mind as you make your decisions. You don't want to injure yourself in some terrible way. My daddy always said when he'd pick up a screwdriver, instead of just starting to work with the screwdriver, he always would think, when it slips, not if it slips, but when it slips, how's it going to hurt me? And that's true of a hammer saw or any piece of equipment that you use. And here what it applies to is the ladder. If you climb a ladder, really think it through. Do you need an assistant? I had to climb a ladder once to get a swarm out of a tree in Morningside, and George Andel lived right around the corner and heard about this swarm and came over. And I wouldn't have been able to get the swarm without him because I'm at the top of the ladder holding a box full of 5 pounds of bees. And George is waiting on the ground, and I can hand him the box and go down the ladder holding onto the ladder. But if you imagine balancing the box in your hand and going down a ladder, not able to hold on to a ladder, it's a little scary. If you shake the hive into a box, how will you steady yourself at the top of the ladder? Are you going to hold on with one hand and shake with the other? And what do you do with the box? So it's a really important thing to think through. And how in the world are you coming down from the ladder? And do you have your cell phone with you so that you could call for help if you did fall off of the ladder? So the first thing you do when you're going to catch a swarm is you arrive at the site and assess the situation. So this is an easy swarm. It's in a shrub. It was actually in my front yard in a shrub. So I can lay the sheet right under it and put the collection box right under it. It isn't always that easy. This, by the way, is an Office Depot cardboard box, and I have just put screen wire over the openings for the handholds and duct taped them so that the bees could be closed into the box, but still have air coming in and out. Before you do anything, take a picture of the swarm. Always take a picture of it. Lay the sheet out under the swarm as best you can. Determine where you're going to put your collection box. You don't always put it directly under the swarm.
So the first thing that happens when you're going to catch a swarm is that you want to put a sheet under the swarm so that should the queen happen to fall on the ground, you'll be able to see her on the sheet. This is the box. It has a piece of old comb in it to help them feel at home. And more than likely, what I'm going to do with the swarm is just cut the branch and drop the whole thing down into the box. So now what I'm going to do is just shake the whole thing. I'm not going to try cutting it off. I'm just going to shake it into the box. So you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. There they all go. Now we put the top on the box with an opening at the side over here so that the bees can crawl in. What will happen is the bees will start realizing the queen is in there and start crawling up. See how they look in the box? I just shook the whole thing in and there they are. Now, in a few minutes, you'll see more bees doing what this bee has her butt up in the air and that bee has her butt up in the air. And they're doing that to send out a pheromone saying, Mama's in this box, Mama's in this box, come here. And
so that's the way it looks when you collect them in a box. That's the way you put your box so that there's a good amount of sheet coming out on all sides of the box, because you can't ever tell where the bees are going to fall. I mean, you can aim for the box, but there are going to be some that don't all make it into the box always. So it's very important to decide where to place your collection box. If the swarm is low enough down, then you just put the collection box directly under the swarm, like in the 2 swarms we've seen already. If you have to climb a ladder, though, imagine where you need the box to be to quickly dump the bees into it when you climb down. And if the bees are very high, some imaginative people have figured out how to put, like, this is a water bottle, like an office water cooler, on the end of a very long extended painter's pole. And this guy's trying to get the swarm, which is up there, and he's going to push the water jug up, push it up and bang up against the tree branch that the swarm is on, and they fall into the water jug. But then you have to get them down. So this is Kurt Barrett, who's not keeping bees anymore, I don't think, but we were trying to measure how far away should we put the box that we were going to dump the bees out of this water container into. So we were doing a trial run right there. Then we did get the bees in the water jug, and we called it Iwo Jima because this photo that somebody took of us with the pole bent over because the bees were so heavy, and we're having to keep from dropping it and get it over to that place where Kurt had put the box. but we did in the end, and it got all wrapped up. And I thought y'all'd like to see this. This is Dave Marshall, who's our swarm commander from ABBA, and he has a bucket on a painter's pole or some kind of long pole. And one of my hives swarmed last year, and I no longer have my painter's pole and bucket. And he came over with his bucket gadget that he's rigged up. This is not a great movie. I was so interested that he was there and so grateful that he was there. I didn't film it very well, but you'll get to at least see a little bit of what happened when we're getting bees this way. So he's got the bees already in the bucket, and he's bringing them down very gently. He doesn't want to turn them over until he gets to the box that they're going into. This is the box that he's already poured most of them in. I missed that altogether with the phone. And now he's just shaking whatever's left in the bucket into the collection.
On the same was always peering over my fence, seeing the bees and the chickens. And too bad nobody walked by while you were doing this.
So isn't that great? Dave was so sweet. I called and said, I've got this problem. Somebody else will need to come get these bees because I can't. He said, I'll come get them for you. And he did. He came and got them for me. And I put them in one of my hives after he left. It was just really great. But the bucket on a painter's pole is a good thing when they're up really high. When you're doing that, you don't have to have a ladder. Now, if you can get close to the swarm, a good thing to do to the swarm before you collect it is to spray them with the sugar syrup that's in your spray bottle. It distracts the bees. It gives them something to do. They can lick it off of each other, and they won't be too interested in what you're doing. Now, this is another shaking of a swarm. I know we saw one a minute ago, but this is a little bit different because this swarm also in my backyard was a swarm from my hive, and the swarm was here, and there's a much bigger one right up here. So they're all on this bush, and I've got to get them. So I thought you'd like to see that.
I have a collection box down below it on a sheet. But what I'm going to do is cut this branch. I'll move the branch with the bees on it down into the box. Very thin. And then I'm gonna take the bees that are near in that same area. Take the rest of them into the box. And I'll lift my collection box up right here. I'll take the top off of it. And take the rest of these bees into the box. So I've got the box in the right position, not right. Okay, here we go. You ready? 1, 2, 3. That was a lot of bees. And I have left this area open, and the rest of it is pretty much covered up, so that maybe if they go in there. I think the queen has to be in there. I don't see enough bees. But we'll see. We'll have to give them some time to settle down. If this bee is doing the Nasamouth signal and that one, that's what they look like they're doing. They're telling their sisters to come in the box, that that's where mommy is.
So we'll see this swarm installed in a little while. I took it to a garden and installed it, so I've got that in this talk as well. So that's how you shake the bees. There are other ways to get swarms, but when you collect the swarm, however you collect it, what you want to do is wait and see by your box for a little while, and the bees will circle the location where the queen mother was, because they still smell her pheromone, and they'll also be circling the box where you have the swarm. And pretty soon, if the queen is in the box, they realize it, and they do this little stance where they stick their butt up in the air, and they open a gland at the very end of their tail right here. And it's called the come hither gland. And it says mama's, that smell indicates that if you follow this smell, you'll get to your mother. Another way to catch a swarm is if you can't shake it, you have to sort of seduce the bees. So this is a seduction thing. What I'm doing is trying to get the bees to come onto frames of old comb. This is the mailbox one that I can't shake.
But some of them are coming over the comb. Maybe it makes them feel like they're good vibrations, right? Come on. Let's go. There you go. Come on. Get on the comb. Let's see it. There you go. Good job. Let's go up. That's smart.
So having a collection box really matters, and it needs to have a top. That's a little nuke, a little plastic nuke that a nuke box. That's a good thing to take to get not a huge swarm, but it's a good thing to take on a swarm call. Now, what happens with the bees? They follow the queen pheromone into the collection box if you're lucky. And here's an example of a swarm I caught, and I was so excited that I took the camera off of this for just a second, but you'll see it, I promise. It'll come back into the picture. I caught myself not filming it. Come all the way back here behind me. They're not going to bother you. See how the bees are going up in the box? And they're doing that because the queen is in the box and they know it. That's what they're going to do, is go in to where their mother is. Is that just beyond cool?
That is so cool.
I can see.
I didn't realize. I guess they were hanging down underneath that too. I didn't realize.
Yeah, they were buried out. They were almost touching the ground.
Wow.
And it was wide. It was over about 4 branches. And because it was over about 4 branches, it was kind of wide to shake it, you know, and get it all in the box, which I did a bad job of. I'm usually better at than that, but this is a hard tree to deal with. But the good news is the queen's in the box. Isn't that just cool to watch them go up like that? They all just want to be with their mother. And she's the reason, she's the old queen from the hive. So they go with her to swarm, and she leaves behind queen cells in the original beehive. And those queen cells will probably hatch tomorrow. And those queens, the first one out kills all the other queens. But now what I have to do is just give them time to climb up into the box so y'all can do whatever you want to do. Go home, watch TV.
There's still some on the branch there. I didn't get the message.
Well, what they are drawn to is the pheromone of the queen, and they go back there. They're just confused, you know. But in a little while, what I'll do is shake them into a bucket and put them in there too. But what we know is that we're good because they're all going into the box.
That's so cool.
So
yeah, they made good progress too.
yeah, they have. Considering that big puddle that's on the ground, I mean, it's really gotten smaller. It's so good to watch them go up and in. So the bees are continuing to climb up to the box to be where the queen is. There's some bees that are on the branch above the box. In just a second, I'm going to shake them and put them in the box as well. This is a good hive, a nice big swarm. And they are steadily making their way into the box. And that's my painter's bucket. I turned the ventilated hive cover upside down so that it would keep them in rather than have entrances on all sides with the box, which is what it was, so that we can get the rest of these bees in. And this was late in the day, and I had to go pick up my grandchild. So I used my bee brush to get the very last of the bees up over the edge. This took about 2 hours to collect this swarm. Now, remember the swarm that I caught with the box on the table? This is where I went and installed it, and I thought it might be helpful to you to see how to install a swarm once you catch one. So I'm at the community garden where this hive was going to be housed, and these are the boxes that I'm ready to put it into, and we'll just see how I do it. I have a box that's almost empty that we're going to dump the bees into, and we'll add another box on top of it because these are medium boxes, and it really takes 3 boxes for the hive to feel like it's at full operating capacity for the bees. So there are bees clinging to the top of the box. So the first thing I'm going to do is shake those into the hive. So I turn the top a little bit and dump them in, and then I turn it upside down and dump the rest of them in. Now this box, the collection box, has in it both frames and the branch that I cut. So I'm going to set the top down for just a minute, right side, wrong side up, so that the bees can leave it and go into the hive. And then I'm going to move the two frames that are in the collection box. The bees have cooperatively gathered around those two frames, making it very, very easy for me to move them into the hive. So I picked them up and I set one of them in the hive. Isn't that handy? It's a whole lot nicer than shaking the bees. They've found their own way into the hive without my having to shake them. So it means the majority of the bees are going into the hive without any added trauma. Here goes the second one. You pick it up, you can see bees hanging off the bottom of it. The queen is in there somewhere. So they both go into the hive quite nicely. Now it's an 8-frame box, so you can see there are 5 frames, but there are 3 frames still needed. I have old comb in my collection box, so I'm shaking some of the bees off of it. And still in that box, there are bees, and I want to get them into the big box as well. But there's a branch as well as some old comb that have to be taken care of first. First, I'm going to take the top and set it over the hive so that it does have sort of containment for the bees that are flying around while I work on the big box. Then I'm going to create a ramp using the inner cover to help the bees get into the beehive. I'm going to turn the bees upside down on the ramp that I've created. There they are. Now they will probably go right up into the hive. Over time, you can see a whole lot of bees now going into the front door, and there are a few bees still in the box, more than I want to leave. So this is a successful swarm install.
So there you go. Now, this is a swarm that emitted from a hive in my yard, and I enticed it into a nuke box to serve as a resource hive in my yard. So here we go. I want you to see this because this was pretty amazing.
This is the 3rd swarm that is issued from what I call Greg's Swarm Hive. It's a hive that lived in a swarm trap all of last year and was given to me at the end of October, still in the swarm trap. No, they're a wild hive that came from South Georgia, so I don't want to lose these bees. But they are spread all over the deck at the moment. There's one even on my arm. They're landing everywhere. Every time I go in the house, one goes in with me. So the bees have realized that the queen has landed over here. And so they are moving toward the queen. This just looks like so many bees. You have to think, did they leave any in the hive? They can't quite figure out where they want to land, where they want to gather, but they're finally now making their way from the full length of the railing up to where the majority of bees seem to be gathered. I think this hive has given me a message that I need to keep at least one of these swarms that have emitted from it because it's a good bunch of bees and I don't want to lose the genetics. So I'm going to keep this one as a resource hive.
This hive swarmed 3 times, maybe 4.
So I put a nuke box under here with some old frames in it, and this swarm is just moving in. Now I've moved the top nuke box over closer so that they could go into both it and the bottom, and they appear to be doing that. It's kind of exciting to do it this way, not have to brush or do anything traumatic. So it's almost all over but the shouting. The bees are pretty much in the hive. You can see all the Asimov signals coming up from the lower box. I've set up a hive stand to put this on. And when they're all in, which probably won't be till nighttime, they've just been a little crazy about this. But when they get all in, I'll shut them up, strap them up, and carry them 50 feet over to the place that they're gonna live.
So there you go. That's that was an easy way to get a swarm in, is to put the box right there and have them just move in on their own. So there are 2 other ways to catch a swarm without being physically present. One of them is, I like to call this, if you bait it, they will come. Old equipment smells like bees and has old comb in it. And so bees, like when the scout bees go out looking for a new place to live, they don't want to start from scratch. They would rather find a tree that where bees have lived before, or somebody's house where bees have lived before, or ideally one of your hive boxes where bees have lived before. And you bait it with a little bit of swarm lure, but less is more. Put some swarm lure sparingly above the entrance and on a couple of top bars, and just wait and see. And these are truly freebies when they come like this. There's no money that you've spent, no time out of your life. It's a true gift of the universe. And this just happened at my house on my top bar that was baited with swarm lure.
This is a swarm moving in. I thought they'd already moved in, but it must have been scouts. Look at them go. This is my top bar hive that has been empty, sitting on my deck with swarm lure in it. My goodness, look at this swarm. There have been so many bees in it that I thought they'd already moved in, and I was worried about the fact that no bees had been flying in with pollen on their legs. So I thought, well, maybe it was a secondary swarm. But this is the real thing. They have arrived in absolute force. Amazing. They're already cleaning up. One of them just pulled out of that wax moth cocoon. But look at them go. This is a great swarm. I couldn't be more excited. I just looked outside through my doors to my deck and saw that there were a lot of bees flying on my porch and wondered where were they coming from? And came outside to see this. That pretty looks like a heart. It's because they an upside down heart. They love my top bar hive.
So that was really cool. And that happens to me usually every year, once a year. Some swarm moves into one of my hives. I always have some empty hive hanging around. So that's one way to get a swarm without doing a thing, except putting a little bit of swarm lure on an empty hive. Another way to do it is to use a swarm trap. And all of these swarm traps were built. And you too can own one of these. You can purchase one of these from Maba at the cost, which is $75. Instead of the retail cost. This is the cost of making it. And setting your trap up now is better than setting it up too late to get swarms. So what you're going to do is, I assume you're going to paint it and then you put frames in the swarm trap. Be good to put some frames with old comb in it and then some frames for the bees to build wax on, because once the swarm gets in there, you want them to have something to do. You bait it lightly with the best swarm lure. There's a recipe for good swarm lure on my YouTube channel, and hang it 10 to 15 feet off the ground. 15 is ideal, and wait for the bees to move in. And if you come to the Maba meeting on Monday night, I'm bringing 50 tubes of free swarm lure that I made to the first 50 people at the meeting on March 9th. So you can take a tube home and try it out. So there you go. Good luck catching swarms.